Hello, and welcome back to MoJo JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the one and only Powerpuff Girls slash JoJo's Bizarre Adventure recap and discussion podcast. I'm Raven.
And I'm Alison.
Today we are going to be talking about the final two episodes of part two, which are the birth of a Superbeing and the Ascendant one.
Okay, episode 25, The Birth of a Superbeing. Those standing by freak out as Cars transforms and arises. The soldiers whimper. Von Stroheim worries he has attained perfection. Hamann eats at one of his arms as the soldiers prepare to shine light on him. Cars stares at a squirrel, then turns his hand into a squirrel. That squirrel attacks the first squirrel, then runs towards the onlookers. The squirrel tunnels into von Stroheim and runs over another soldier's face. JoJo yells to retreat, and the squirrel returns to Cars, who turns it into a butterfly and a flower. The sun comes up and destroys the 100 minions, but doesn't affect Cars. Speedwagon laments that they will all die. Cars is the ultimate creation. JoJo says he has a plan and hands Lisa over to Speedwagon. JoJo runs away as Cars grows wings and says he will avenge Wamu and AC/DC. So I just feel like if someone is an ultimate being, they would not care about revenge, but that's just me.
Perhaps, yeah, you'd think he's like too evolved for that and be beneath him.
Yeah, they're just like ants at this point, humans.
Yeah.
JoJo is supposedly trying to save the others, and Smokey follows. Cars flies in pursuit as Smokey tries to tell JoJo the truth about Lisa. I mean, timing, Smokey, timing.
Timing, young man, timing.
JoJo jumps off a cliff, seemingly into the ocean, but somehow pops up, now piloting a plane. JoJo buzzes the soldiers and company in a German warplane with Cars in pursuit and attempts to shoot Cars. Cars, in turn, shoots feathers that have turned into hard-plated projectiles covered in bullet-deflecting oil. How?
Convenient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He causes JoJo to almost crash in the water, but JoJo takes off with Cars in pursuit at 240 kilometers per hour. I could have the wrong speed there, but I'm calling foul on Cars being able to keep up with a plane.
Yes.
He can only fly for 2 more hours or will run out of fuel. Speedwagon says they will try to help over the radio as JoJo plans to destroy Cars in a volcano, which I do think is a good plan. Speedwagon tells him about Lisa, but the radio breaks up. Suddenly, murderous piranhas attack JoJo in the cockpit. Cars' feathers from earlier turned into the piranhas. And somehow there's like an octopus at the front of the plane and it stops the propellers and the plane takes a dive. JoJo parachutes out as the plane heads towards the volcano and Cars cackles because he thinks he has won. But there is a dummy in the parachute and JoJo barrels towards Cars in the plane. So I'm not sure why before Cars was so fast or whatever, but now somehow JoJo can like run the plane into him and he can't get off.
Yeah.
I know von Stroheim throws his arm at him in a second, but before that, like I don't know. Or where the dummy came from, we won't talk about that either. JoJo thinks of Arena as Cars loses his wings. Von Stroheim tosses his hand at Cars and it pins him to the plane. Von Stroheim yells at JoJo to jump out even though the piranhas ate the other parachute. The plane crashes into the volcano's lava, but we see JoJo jumped before and von Stroheim caught him somehow. The lava explodes with a somehow still alive Cars. I'm not super surprised that the lava didn't kill him immediately because he is a super being. It sort of reminds me of like the Terminator 2 where they like, I don't know, crashed into where they were melting really hot metal or whatever. I don't know if it's like smelting or what was happening there, and that's the final thing that they were able to kill the T2 with, and that's the end of the episode. But Yeah.
So he's like too powerful even for volcanoes. So sadly, the T2, what would have killed the T2, did not affect cars.
I mean, sort of. It's just like we'll get to it, but it's like he's able to do things to put protection around him, which I guess the T2 can't put up like armor or I don't know, special bubbles, for instance.
There's special bubbles in this part. Somebody spent too much time with Caesar, I think. Probably barely interacted with Caesar, and he's just like, you know what? Bubble White, he's got it down.
I don't really see him like fast enough coming up with something like that.
Yeah. Wild last couple of episodes. This part. I feel like this episode, with him fucking turning his hand into a squirrel, I feel like that's when it finally like earned the bizarre in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. For me, anyways.
I mean, I guess they could have had him maybe do a couple more things. I think he was trying to show he had mastered everything or whatever. He could
Yeah.
be anything, maybe. Then he just quickly stopped doing that and I don't know, wanted revenge, I guess.
He clearly does not have ADHD because he would have been distracted for a while turning his hand into different things if it were
I mean,
me.
I guess he did have like a whole army around him or whatever, so I guess that kept him in the sight of JoJo or whatever, kept him on track.
Yeah. So I think we're going to move on and talk about the finale here, which is called the Ascendant one. So we jump back into the episode, and the narrator basically goes on about how majestic Cars is, but that he couldn't go out in the sun, so he made the stone mask. As Cars emerges from the lava, he tries to make himself some crab-like armor to fend off the magma. It seems to work at first, but then he catches flame even harder. JoJo gloats prematurely about defeating the Pillarmen. The volcano is falling apart around them. JoJo picks up von Stroheim and makes to leave, which I think his legs like broke on impact. Von Stroheim's legs broke on impact when they landed. I think that's how he ended up legless, and he's just like that's why JoJo had to grab him. In a flash of light, JoJo's arm is severed and cut off, and it falls to the ground. Cars emerges from the lava in some armor, but it falls off him. He gloats as JoJo screams and yells from the pain. Von Stroheim zeroes in on the fragments of Cars' armor and examines them with his special cyborg eye. The narrator explains that Cars created 2 layers of armor and was able to survive because of the bottom layer closest to his skin being made of air bubbles. So then we cut back to eons ago. We learn that the Pillarmen came from a society of beings that evolved alongside the humans. They lived underground and were worshipped as deities. They had a low death and birth rate, as they hardly ever died or had kids. They lived in peace amongst themselves until Cars was born, and his hubris was too much. He created the stone mask, giving himself great power, but at the cost of having a very high metabolism and having to eat living things constantly. The others feared him and wanted to purge the world of his evil, but Cars killed all of them except for one of his buddies and 2 babies, which were the other 3, of course, being Wamu, ACDC, and San Viento. Von Stroheim says that Cars is a god and that he must submit or perish. JoJo tries to hit Cars with a Holland overdrive. Cars plays an Uno reverse card on JoJo, and his leg starts to melt with Cars' newfound Holland abilities. Because apparently being a super being made him a Holland master immediately somehow. JoJo writhes in agony. JoJo and von Stroheim no longer feared their deaths, and JoJo tells himself he did all he could. Cars goes to deal a blow of his Haman to JoJo, but that gives JoJo an idea. He raises the red stone of Asia in his hand as Cars begins to hit him. JoJo realizes that the red stone magnifies Haman too. The force of the red stone's Haman blast causes the volcano to erupt and sends JoJo and Cars into the air. Cars gloats because he thinks he can just fly away. JoJo's severed arm hits him in the throat, distracting him as he is pelted by debris from the lava. So they're on this big ass rock left over from that, and like von Stroheim is like left near the rest of the volcano. The debris pushed him further into the air until he is ultimately in outer space. Cars tries in vain to get back to Earth, but all his efforts are in vain. He floats in outer space forever and turns into stone. Unable to die, Cars floats and floats until he stops thinking altogether. That's partially why I kept in your little comments a couple episodes ago where you're like Pillarman in space. Because I was like, you've kind of got it a little bit, but I didn't want to spoil it.
I mean, I don't think he's like dead. They could just like warm him back up. I kind of
Perhaps.
find it weird just that I know they were like nothing on Earth could kill him, but
So
just being in the
space.
coldness and vacuum of space can kill him.
I don't see why the volcano didn't work then, because that's extreme heat, but the extreme cold got him somehow. And then the lack of gravity, I guess. I don't know. So then it seems like JoJo has died. We cut to his funeral. We see Granny Rena, Speedwagon, Lisa, Machina, who I guess did survive after all, and Smokey are all there mourning JoJo when a red car pulls up. A man arrives at the funeral and puts his hands over Granny Zarina's eyes and says, "Guess who?" The man, JoJo himself, complains about not being picked up at the airport. He shows off his new prosthetic hands that he got from von Stroheim. Everyone is shocked that he's alive, but JoJo is even more shocked that they're now holding his funeral. Susie Q comes out from the red car bearing a wedding ring, and everyone is even more shocked that she and JoJo got married, which is wild because they like barely interacted, and now they're hitched. JoJo is confused that everyone thought he was dead and explains that the rock he was on landed in the ocean and he was picked up by a fishing boat near Venice. Susie Q nursed him back to health for 2 weeks, but she was supposed to send a telegram telling everyone he was still alive, but because she's a huge ditz, she forgot. JoJo chases her around with his new mechanical arm, and then we cut to what happens to everyone after. So, after telling JoJo that she is his mom, Lisa moved to America with JoJo and Susie Q, where she eventually remarried. The guy is like a Hollywood screenwriter. Granny Arena is a school teacher until her death in 1950 at age 81. She dies surrounded by her family and friends. Speedwagon dedicates his life to medicine and science, dying at 89 of a heart attack. He never married, and some people think this is because he was in love with Jonathan, and so he just like never loved again. Smokey studied poli-sci in college and becomes the first black mayor of his hometown in Georgia. Von Stroheim dies in 43 at the Battle of Stalingrad. He never sees JoJo again, which, boo-hoo, he was a Nazi. I don't feel bad that he didn't get to see JoJo again.
I mean, again, they kind of barely knew each other. It's just like,
Yeah. So then after that, we cut much further into the future to the 80s, 1987 to be precise. JoJo is now in his late 60s and he's at the JFK airport in New York. He gets angry at a Japanese tourist who accidentally hit him with his luggage. He beats the poor guy up, and he's cranky because his daughter married a Japanese man and moved to Tokyo, and he hardly ever sees her now. And I guess for some reason that made him hate the Japanese, which is like he got old and he got real racist, which he worked with Nazis, so maybe that's not a huge surprise. I don't know.
he loves their gadgets, though.
Yeah, he's like, they don't need shit, but fuck them because my daughter moved. And then we cut back a few years before that, even, and there is a strange coffin fished out of the Atlantic Ocean.
I wasn't
There's
sure if it looked like maybe Egyptian or something. I wasn't sure.
so we have this strange coffin, and then our other teaser is that we see this teen boy in a jail cell, and that is what we have to go on for what happens in part three.
I'm just not sure this was like a super satisfying ending. It might have been nice to see them like all together outside of like JoJo's funeral doing something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then him, like, I understand we didn't, outside of fighting the Pillar Men, we didn't really see a whole lot of JoJo, but I don't feel like it's on brand him just like kicking someone's ass because they like bumped into him and that they were Japanese. It just doesn't seem like it would be what he would normally do. I know
Yeah.
40 or 50 years have went by. I mean, maybe Susie Q cheats on him and he's just angry. Like I don't know. He's a bitter, angry old man.
It's very
But
grumpy man.
like we just it like the show just went. And so it would be nice to just kind of see maybe some almost boring scenes of like
Yeah.
them having happy times and not just like here's how they all died, pretty much.
Yeah. I feel like it's a lot. I feel like we get more like episodes like that where they're just kind of like doing normal shit. Like more towards like part four. That one's a little like less intense in some ways. Part four is like one of my favorite parts. I'd say four and six are my favorites. And so the first three parts were originally only going to be the only three parts. So that was originally written as the ending, but then
Oh,
Iraqi decided to continue on and made like six more parts.
yeah.
There's kind of like the way that the fights escalate. Someone described it as kind of like kids playing and like the playground, and someone's like, I shoot you with my gun. And then the kid's like, well, I have a force field. And then the other kid's like, well, my gun shoots through force fields. Type of thing, where it's just like their abilities play off each other until finally there's like a winner.
Oh.
I saw someone say that, like, I think it was on Tumblr. If I find that again, but just kind of like, I do see that in a way. There's just like this intense fight. Well, it would be an imaginary fight. It's not like a real fight,
Is that why there's bubbles?
but. See, that would make sense if that was Rock's thinking. It's like,
I mean, the some of the Pillar Men were like that. San Viento was supposed to be really young. Like maybe
yeah.
Bubbles there makes sense, but I don't know. So there was a when he killed everyone, Cars in his Pillarman group. There was one adult and two children. Which two? I know San Viento was a baby. Who was the other baby?
I want to say it was Womack. I think ACDC was the other adult. I just kind of like saw his hair from the back, so
Didn't
I
care about bringing any ladies with him or.
nothing apparently. And then they're like, he killed his parents, he killed everyone. He really went Anakin Skywalker on them.
I don't know why you just don't just run off and like why you have to like if you have all that power. I mean, I suppose they could have pursued him, but if you don't like what's going on in your community, you don't just like nuke it.
Yeah, that's wild. Don't don't just like go on a killing spree now. You just like, you know what? I don't like what's going on here. I'm gonna go find somewhere else where I do enjoy what's going on here.
You probably could have went somewhere else on Earth and got the people to just like worship him as a god.
Yeah, like they kind of already were like being worshipped by humans.
But it
So
was
he's even
probably
fancier now.
very limited to because it's like 2000 years ago to like where they were at, but like he could have
Yeah,
just go somewhere else and be start up a whole new god.
yeah. Leave Central or South America and go elsewhere. Yeah,
Go check out the Egyptians or the Russians or I don't know, not that there were maybe some of those groups quite yet, but I don't know.
yeah. He could have done like anything, went anywhere, and he's just like, I have my newfound powers. Everyone is scared of me. I'm gonna kill them.
Does the next part start out with him arriving in Japan and visiting his daughter and grandson, or do you know? Or do
Pretty
you
sure.
remember?
Yeah, I think that's basically what happens in the first episode or so. It's just kind of that, and then
I'm gonna come and be his crotchety self. Come and tell you should be doing this. How come you're not doing this? How old people like to do.
yeah,
At least we get to see, I guess, a JoJo make it to old age.
yeah.
He broke that curse somewhat.
So then next time that we get back to JoJo, we're gonna have an art style change, a new JoJo, more shenanigans. It only gets weirder from there, but I feel like part three is kind of what cements the tone of like the rest of the series though too.
I'm assuming there's more Pillar Men. I mean, if that's what like the first section is about. Like, I'm not sure how you like pivot from that. Pillarmen and Haman using.
You'll see. You'll see.
Whole new thing. We have a whole new thing to fight.
I don't know how much to say because I don't want to like.
It's mummies. It's vampire mummies now. Vampire mummies in space. And they've figured out.
They've landed
They've figured out how to beat space.
They've landed in a B movie. They're on Mystery Science Theater 3000 now.
We're gonna get, was it Ving Rhames to come and punch through their defenses. But wow. Bruce Willis is gonna drill. I don't know.
We have
Will Smith is gonna save the day. I don't know why I'm on like alien and disaster movies.
So when we next get on here to talk about shows, we will not be discussing JoJo because we finished up the season. We're going back to Powerpuff Girls. So we'll be discussing season 2 of PPG, and I believe the first 2 episodes of that are called Stuck Up, Up and Away, and Schoolhouse Rocked, which I think the one is like they introduce Princess Morbox, and I think the other one is the Gangrene Gang. So that'll be fun.
Yay! Like at first, I was wanting to get back to the Powerpuff Girls, and I still am, but I'm like the JoJo did grow on me some.
Yeah. I'm excited to get back to Powerpuff Girls, but just like some of the stuff that happens in like part 3 and beyond of JoJo, I'm dying for you to see and like discuss.
Oh,
So I'm just like, we shall see. We shall see.
probably won't take that long to get through Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah, it'll probably take us like maybe like 12 or 13 more episodes.
Oh.
Yeah. I think we got I want to say this is episode 25, so we had 12 Powerpuff Girls episodes and 13 JoJo episodes.
I keep forgetting this is the time of like when you put out 20 episodes a season or whatever.
Right.
It's not like the 8 or 10 episodes.
There will be much to discuss next week when we get back to Powerpuff Girls, and then there will be much to discuss later on when we get to the first part of part 3 of JoJo. So until next time, I guess I'll be the roundabout. Goodbye.
Goodbye.